my sweet little noodles, my name is Brittany and welcome back to my channel. And today I'll be reading some paranormal romance from my teenage years. This is kind of an odd reading vlog, but I was very inspired this year when I decided to go to the library and I found a book that I read when it was very popular when I was a teenager. And that book is marked. And if you don't know what this book is, you are not a teenager in the mid 2000s because this book came out in 2007, which is the year I was a freshman in high school. This series was also like the other Twilight. Like this just took over my high school to the point where like me and my friends would each like buy different books from the series and we would like switch them out. So like this person would buy the first book, this would buy the second one, and then like they would just like lend it out to other people to read. And so then we all eventually ended up reading the series that way. But this book is basically a witchy Twilight. Like they're like spells and they're casting circles. It's a very interesting book from what I remember. It is not like the Twilight vampires. It's like a House of Night vampires and it's in Oklahoma. So it's just like kind of a very different book, but vampires were all the rage. And it's one of those books that I just like remember fondly. Like I don't remember a whole lot about it. I just remember that the main character is like part Cherokee and there's a lot of like Native American symbolism and stuff in here, and her grandmother is Native American, and so it's just really cute to see like the indigenous aspect. Now, I don't know if that's 100% accurate. I don't know. I'm pretty sure the women who wrote this are white. So don't ask me. I will look up the problematic materials later, but I do know that this came under fire because of the R word, which was very popular when I was growing up. I mean, it's still in like Mean Girls, which was in like 2004. Like there's a lot of movies, there's a lot of print that uses the R word. And I think that was kind of like the beginning of politically correct culture. Like that, in my opinion, was like the big, like, we need to change how we talk about people. And so a lot of people like boycotted their books just because the first one specifically, I remember, had it in there a couple of times. Anyway, I think the standout of this is that it takes place in Oklahoma, which traditionally in America, I feel like is not a very like cool place. And so having like a whole vampire thing in Oklahoma, which is kind of like very ballsy in this era specifically, but even today I'd be like, that's a little ballsy to have your House of Night school in Oklahoma, honey. Anyway, this is one of the books that I wanted to get back into. Obviously it's a paranormal romance. There's I think 2 different love interests for our main character Zoe, and in this world vampires are like normal, I'm gonna call them like human defects. Like once you hit I think 16, you can begin to change and start turning into a vampire and you become marked, and there's gonna be like a moon on your forehead or something, and you're marked by like somebody who knows you're supposed to become a vampire, and then you eventually will like undergo the change. And I think it's a really interesting way to make vampires because obviously the world knows about vampires and they're like revered in their own way. Even though a lot of people still don't like their existence, they're still there and they still have like their own school and everything. And this is taking place in Oklahoma, which to me is not the most like inclusive and inviting place in the US specifically. So again, I think that's kind of a bold choice, and maybe that was intentional. But I do know that the mom and daughter who wrote this live in Oklahoma, so like it could just be location. Anyway, I'm gonna start this one first just because I had this on audio and I'm really excited to get into this because it just was like a really fun pickup at the library. Like I just happened to see it when I was perusing the section and I was like, you know, I haven't read that in a very long time. I wonder if it still like stands up to my standards today and if it's like just god awful cringy or like low-key I had good taste. So we'll see. And the other book is one that is very hard to find, and that is Generation Dead. In my opinion, this was hard to find and I had to buy it on Amazon as a Kindle option, and I think I literally got it for like under $2, which was quite a steal. But this book is another paranormal romance, but this time it's a human in love with a zombie. And I don't really remember too much about this book other than I was reading this in high school, and my library back home still has this, by the way. Like they're the only one library that I have that still has this in print. And that's obviously where I read it. I remember sitting in my backyard and it was really, really hot. I mean, traditionally as it is in the Sacramento area, it was a really hot day. I think it was like May or something. And I remember sitting outside, you know, my family were like, you know, getting the pool, they're hanging out, and I was just sitting outside reading, and I read this book for so long that I got a really bad tan on my thighs in the exact cutout of that book. So that's a memory for you. And I really enjoyed this book, and I remember actually reading the sequel, which is called, I think it's called Kiss of Life. And the fact that as a now 30-year-old, I've still not forgotten about this book ever, and it's still something I think about all the time. It told me that this was something I definitely need to revisit and just see like if I still liked this book, because it was just such an original concept and I'd never read anything like it. I think that's just why advice always stuck with me. I don't remember anybody's names. I don't remember shit. I just remember that zombies are, again, like an accepted thing that end up happening. They're not like a apocalypse thing, like zombies. It's just like a virus or something and it infects people and they live among humans. I don't remember the whole thing, but I do know that she's in love with a zombie. They're in high school. It's a good ass time. So I'm going to finish Marked first and then get back to you guys. And this should hopefully be finished in the next day or two because it's not a very long book and I do have the audio. So if I like the audio, I'll probably just go with that and then get back to you guys. But wish me luck.
Why do you seem so scared? All I wanted to do is play with you. Please come and play with me. I'm so lonely. You're not afraid of the dark, are you? Are you? Are you? Are you? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
So I finally finished Marked, and this is the book I remember reading, but it was a lot less entertaining than I remember. Just for the fact that I continued on with the series and read up to like the 4th or 5th book, I just really thought this was gonna be a little more titillating, but honestly, it's probably a 2-star for me. It's just okay. Like, is it the worst book I've ever read? Absolutely not. But is it the best book I've revisited from my teenage years? Definitely not. And the more I was reading it, I was like, why was this all the rage back then? Because I feel like there really wasn't any like good plot. Like even like Twilight had more plot, you know what I mean? Like at least Twilight had a really good romance. And in here, I just feel like there's not a whole lot of good stuff going on, especially because the world building could have been done better, but we're given very small glimpses of that. And the shame is it's like the stuff that's actually interesting. I want to know how this world works because it kind of doesn't really make any sense. Like vampires are obviously a known, like we're gonna call it like a genetic defect, but yet there's only like one vampire school of all of America and it's in Oklahoma. But yet like all of the very popular celebrity stuff tend to be like vampires. Like it's mentioned in here, like a couple of country singers were all vampires and they're like known vampires. I'm confused. I think the other frustrating part was like the chosen one aspect of this was so overwhelmingly strong. It was just very incredibly frustrating to read from Zoe's perspective because she's a very spoiled brat type of character and she's obviously the chosen one. So like she can command all 5 elements of the spirit. So she can control like, you know, fire, air, all that fun stuff. She controls all the elements and when she casts a circle. So she's like a very powerful next priestess. And there has never been a high priestess that had an affinity for all 5 elements. I guess till Zoe came along because she's so special at 16 years old to be the next high priestess. Again, she's super special because the mark on her forehead is 100% colored in, which is just unheard of in a fledgling. Like usually they have like an outline or it's like faint or something. But hers is like a fully colored in like vampire, like a grown ass adult vampire. So again, Miss Super Special. And naturally the evil villain is another disgusting teenager who decides to refer to humans as refrigerators because vampires are supreme. So I just feel like it's kind of weak. Like it's a really weak book, especially in terms of plot. Like the parts that are interesting is when she's going to school, she's learning about vampires a little bit. We're learning how they work in this world. And I like that it kind of is like a witchy vampire thing. It's not like straight up, it's like drinking blood, like they're casting circles and stuff. I think that's a really cool way to do it. I feel like that's something I haven't seen before with vampires until this book, but I really like that aspect. It just didn't really go anywhere. And again, I just feel like it's really not that important. Like nothing really big is happening other than our villain gets visions. And at the end, she was like, oh, by the way, like everything's gonna get a lot worse. What does that mean? What does that mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
Like you've only seen the beginning of the end. I don't really care to continue. Like honestly, might I continue? I don't know. Like if this popped up on audio or something, like the second book, and I was like, oh, it's the second book. Like I might read it whenever I'm kind of bored. Sure. But like, do I really want to continue on? I don't really know. I don't really know if it's that important, but I can see why I liked it so much as a teenager. But then again, like it's not very sexy, which is what I was kind of expecting. There was like a forced blowjob scene. It was basically assault and it just really wasn't that sexy. It's not. Someone being coerced into a blowjob with like blood and stuff just is not my thing. And I think the real downfall of this book is the juvenile writing. It is much too young of an audience, even for young adult. I just feel like this did not really deliver in terms of writing at all. And it was very cringe and I had a really hard time with it. It was just very, very juvenile. And on top of everything else, there was just a lot of slut shaming in here. Don't really appreciate that. I just feel like our main character thinks she's better than everybody else and everybody else is a slut. and she's just the god all be all and she's gonna here to save humanity or something. I don't fucking know. Do I really care? Not particularly. I really would read on because I'm curious about how this world works a little bit more, and I really like her relationship with her grandmother and her indigenous roots. Is really interesting to see how at the end of the book she basically says something was wrong with like the summoning of the spirits because she used the wrong herb, and I was like, you know what, that was a really interesting point, and I liked how she used her knowledge to amend the situation and come out on top. And it obviously came from like her Native American heritage with her grandmother. I like that part. I really like her Grammy. She's rad. I like that there's that little bit of it in there. I just feel like the rest of it was just so lame. Like, this book really has nothing going on in terms of plot. Like, she's just at this school and she's trying to infiltrate, I think it's called the Dark Daughters. They're like the vampire group that are like, I don't even know what they do. They're like the top girls and boys of like the vampire school. I don't know. Anyway, so she wants to join them because she hates the villain and she wants to like overthrow her as like the main person of this group. And they cast a couple circles, and that's like literally the entire book. Yeah, not a whole lot happens. Anyway, I guess 2 stars out of me, and I'm gonna start on Generation Dead and get back to you guys, but I thought Generation Dead is a little bit better. I remember liking that book more, but I think that's also just because I remember more happening in the zombie book. I remember there being a little more like a political aspect. So I hope I'm not wrong, because I do kind of have high hopes for this, and I technically own it on Kindle. So I hope I do like it enough to like not want to like delete off my Kindle forever. So we'll see. So I'm finally 60% of the way into Generation Dead, and so far not a whole lot has really happened in this zombie apocalypse. In the zombie world, we have a lot going on in terms of like political issues, but nothing is ever like fully addressed or confirmed. And it's quite obvious that being a zombie is being equated to being a person of color in this book. Like, it's obviously talking about systemic racism, but like doesn't talk about like how we truly can like get rid of this issue. And like I think it's a really interesting idea, because obviously people are terrified of zombies. They're scared of them for no reason, just because they're like, they came back from the dead. They don't really know what to do with them. They don't really know how to like, deal with their children coming back as like undead people. Like, to a point, I get it, right? But at the other end of the spectrum, wouldn't you be grateful that your dead son came back at all, and now he's still here? It's not like they're a different person. Like, they come back, you know what I mean? Like, they remember everything. They remember how they died. They remember how their life was. Like, nothing about them technically is different in terms of like memory, but of course like their speech and stuff can be affected. Some of them have a hard time walking. Some of them are almost human-like they could pass as like living. So it's just kind of an interesting concept, but I feel like a lot of it is overshadowed by a lot of teenage drama that like nobody gives a fuck about. Literally nobody cares. I would say our main character is Phoebe, and Phoebe is this sweet little goth girl who falls in love with an undead dude named Tommy. Now, Tommy is a zombie who is like very like living passing. Like, he can play for the football team, like he can move. He's definitely like living passing for sure. And she just for some reason likes this dude out of nowhere. Okay, literally like no other reason other than like saw the dude, wrote him the world's worst poem, and they gave it to him. So there's that. But also Tommy's basically playing out the football team because he wants to show people that zombies can like do what like regular human teenage kids do. And I think the big caveat of this book is the fact that only teenagers are coming back. Like, if you die and you're past like a teen year, you're not coming back, sweetie. You're dead. Only teenagers in America are coming back to life. And I really like that concept, but again, nothing is fucking explained so far. Like, I was really expecting there to be some sort of explanation. There's only just been like, guesses as to like maybe what that entails. Is it like the dyes in our food? Is it preservatives? Is it our vaccine schedule? Like, what is making only American children like come back from the dead? And like, I really like that idea, and I want to see where that goes. Like, if it's a mold, like whatever it is, but can you just like foreshadow a little bit? Because right now it just feels like we're in this really bad teenage drama with zero explanation for the zombie like apocalypse. Like, what's going on? Like, why are zombies all of a sudden now a thing? Why do we know so little about them? Why aren't you like, bringing zombies in to like test on them in a good way? You know what I mean? And the Hunter Institute is doing just that. So that is an institute that is basically all about the differently biotic children, and is like trying to figure out like what's going on with these kids. But are they the good guys? Are they just part of the government that really just wants to like take zombie kids and like kill them? Like, I don't fucking know, because all of a sudden zombie kids are getting like kidnapped and murdered. It makes sense. It makes sense in this world that like that would happen, but a lot of them aren't being covered on the news, which is definitely why some of the kids are upset about it, understandably. But I think it's just so overshadowed by the teenage drama between Phoebe and her lifelong friend Adam, who's always had a crush on her. And Phoebe has a friend named Margie, and Margie, Phoebe, and Colette used to be best friends, and then Colette died over the summer and they didn't like help her, and they didn't talk to her after she died. There's just like a lot of drama going on, and then like none of it is resolved. resolved, especially in a way that I like. Like, it just keeps going around in circles that like Margie doesn't want to talk to Colette because she's like upset. Like, I don't understand and I don't care. I don't know. Can you guys just resolve this already? Because like, I want you guys to be friends and like just grow up. She died. You were a shitty friend. Apologize, move on. And if she doesn't want to move on, then just don't be friends with her. Bye. I don't fucking care. And behind all this, there's also a kid named Pete at school who's like the town bully. And he had the love of his life, Julie, die, and she didn't come back. Because also when you're a teenager and you die, you could come back, you could not. We, again, don't really understand why some kids are coming back and why some aren't. So he's like literally upset that she died and didn't come back. And so he has like nightmares of this bitch haunting him. And every time he like sees girls, he like thinks they're Julie. You know, he's like that delusional PTSD level where like he's just so traumatized from her death and then her not coming back that he just has like this like unhinged rage towards any zombies. Overall, I'm enjoying it. It's just like not the book that I remember reading. You know what I mean? Like, I remember reading this and I remember being so enthralled by the romance between Tommy and Phoebe, but like the romance, number one, is like a total backseat. Secondly, it is so fucking lackluster because I mean, I don't know if it's because these books are like produced by like Disney and Hyperion or whatever, but like there's zero like tension. There's zero like, there's none of that. Like, there's nothing going on. There's nothing like remotely romantic, I feel like, happening. I mean, I guess you could think it's romantic that she wrote him a god-awful poem and then gave it to him after football one day. It's just like, that's just something like an 11-year-old thinks would be like a good idea. You know what I mean? Like, let me just give this dude a poem. He's gonna naturally figure out that I like him. And the said dude puts it up in his locker, which is a very nice thing to do. And I guess he obviously likes her back. I just feel like it's a little weird. Like, that's like your like biggest first interaction. I don't know about that. I'm so sorry, by the way. My nose is so itchy. I really don't know what's going on. Anyway, I just feel like this book is like not as good as I remember. Like, it's not hitting the way I want it to. But like, it is a fun like ride. I just feel like it's very vapid and like service level. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there's not a whole lot going on. And the problem is like, there is so much stuff that they could like really delve into, like the whole zombie thing. Like, I really want to understand how zombies work. And like, if you know me, you know me. I love world building. Like, I can get past like bad characters and stuff sometimes. Like, I honestly don't care about the characters half the time because the whole part of a book is me imagining that I'm in the book. Like, I imagine myself as like a third party character, okay? So this is the cool ass world that like I'm interested. But like, I don't really care about this teenage drama between these kids. Like, I don't care how bad you are at being emotionally vulnerable with your friends. I really don't care. I mean, a lot of us don't learn that till we're in our 30s anyway. It's not really a surprise that you're that bad at it, but like, I don't care to read it. You know what I mean? And I really just want to get to the bottom of these zombies. What is really going on? Who's really murdering them? Is it the government? Is it like a band of rebels? Like, what is going on here? Like, I really want to understand how they work too, because one of the zombies, Karen, is very lifelike and she's even like been seen eating and drinking. And so like, can zombies do that? Does their body still work? How's their body even working? I mean, there's no blood pumping. How are their muscles moving? Like, I'm very, very curious as to how this works. I understand not all that may ever get resolved because I just looked. This is apparently like a 4-book series now. At the time when I was in high school, there was only 2 books. So I don't really know if I'm that interested to continue on, but at the same time, like, I just feel like I need answers. You know what I mean? And I'm hoping I get some more answers because I swear to God, something else happened at the end of the book that like made me want to read more. So I'm assuming that I'm gonna get something from the zombie thing because I just feel like we keep going around in circles, seeing the same scenes of people talking or like throwing a frisbee because that's character development, but nothing is truly happening. And then the scenes at like the Institute are just like them talking. I don't want to see the kids talking about what it means to be a zombie. Like, what is going on at the Institute? Are you testing people? What is going on? Like, I really want to understand like how they're working on zombies. I want zombie information. I want the news clips. I want everything. And I just feel like right now we're getting a whole lot of teenagers talking smack. So anyway, this is a very long update, but when I finish this, I'll get back to you guys. But so far I'm enjoying it. Just really want some plot here. I want some better plot. So we'll see if that happens. We decided to go to a really fun fall event being held at Raleigh's Dix Park. It was where you could also get like free pumpkins. Your kids can go around at bouncy houses. It was a really fun time full of vendors and artists and lots of food trucks. Like, the food truck selection was absolutely freaking insane. It was so impressive. And there was actually this little van full of books, which was so cool. And then we ended up getting the best lemonade we've both ever had at this place called Larger Than Lemons. And we also got a cheeseburger sticker trash plate from the Trash Talk food truck. Literally freaking amazing. And we also went to the Umbrella Dry Bar where we got a mocktail. We got the Dark and Stormy, and people just brought their dogs. It was a really fun time. Like, people were just having a good time hanging out and supporting a lot of local vendors. And to end the day, we ended up getting Oak City fish and chips. Were really sweet and spicy, and they were delicious. So I finally finished Generation Dead, and for a almost 400-page book, I feel like nothing really truly happened. This YA book about zombies who don't eat brains was titillating in the beginning, but I feel like when we got towards the end, it just got really melodramatic, and then nothing was wrapped up in a way that I enjoyed. I like that the book made points that being a zombie was kind of like what it was like to be a person of color, but nothing was ever fully explored. It was just kind of like dropped out there and then like unaddressed. And I don't really like that. If you're gonna have those kind of comparisons, I kind of would like at least a discussion about it, or certain scenes that, like, you know, made correlations, something along that effect. I just feel like this book was very surface level, and this world building could have been a lot deeper, and it decided not to go there. Rereading this as an adult, it definitely gave me the nostalgia. Like, I don't remember this book being this boring and like the plot being this lackluster. Like, I just remember there being a lot more, and I remember being more invested in the romance, and I did not feel the romance between Tommy and Phoebe at all. I think I really liked the love triangle going on between Phoebe, Tommy, and Adam, but like, I don't really care too much about like Tommy and Phoebe being together, because it seems like Tommy just like wants her to like him as a zombie so he feels like alive, and I just feel like that's not really good enough of a reason for romance, because I don't really understand like what interactions they had led to her being like, I want to be with this dude, and then give him your weird poetry after football. I don't know what that's about. I also don't remember this being like multi-POV. I swear it was like just one POV. I don't remember it being this many people. I thought it was like just Phoebe or maybe Adam, but no, it's a multiple POV, and the problem is like the next person's paragraph will start like in like a sentence, so like it's kind of jarring whenever that happens. And I know some books definitely utilize that, like a lot of literary fiction, but it doesn't usually bother me that bad. But I mean, in this instance, it was really jarring, and it was very confusing because it was hard to set the scene of like who was where and what they were doing if you're changing that quickly in between thoughts. I think like some authors are really good at that, like Frederick Bachman does that, for example, in Beartown, and I feel like it's not as confusing. It's also like, again, like more of like a literary fiction feel, and I feel like that's much more common in a literary fiction because it's supposed to be like slower, but when this is a kind of a fast-paced book, it can get very jarring and abrupt and like confusing. My biggest frustration is all the red herrings in this novel. Like, there's so many things that like is alluded to and nothing ever happens. Like, there's nothing's even like foreshadowed properly. It's just like kind of like dropped in here. Like, it's like a murder mystery and you're like trying to figure out what's going on, but like I just want to understand the world building and you're not giving me shit. I'm not a fan of adding more and more issues to a novel and then not resolving any of them, especially at the end, which is kind of a bang and it's not really expected and it's abrupt, and I'm like, so you're adding more issues on top of issues that were already not resolved. It doesn't really leave a good taste in my mouth, and honestly I would continue on to the second book just because like I'm so curious about it, because I remember reading it but I don't remember what it was about. Like, I don't remember anything that happened in the second book at all, even though I know obviously from the ending like kind of what's going to happen in the second book. I don't remember it. I really don't. I wonder if like I read it and like put it down. I wonder if I read it and finished it and was like, I don't know. Apparently there's like 4 books in that series and there's like little spin-off series, so I had no idea that those were all out there. I really had no idea. But I am glad I got to revisit this book because it's one of those books, again, that I thought about for such a long time that I literally like misremembered it. Like, I just remember it being so much more interesting than it actually was. And like, again, this could just be like my teenage brain being like, wow, this is like some good shit. But as like an adult, there's so many like, not like plot holes, it's just like I really realized I don't like unanswered things. And I feel like as a teenager, I was much more happy with like a cliffhanger because I wanted to read the next book, and like I lived for that kind of like melodrama of not getting my needs met in that book. But now I really crave kind of like that Brandon Sanderson type of YA book where like you get a whole ass story, there are some questions, but you get like a really good solid ending that answers a lot of those questions and then adds something else for the next book. I don't like these books that don't answer shit, as like especially like a first or second novel, and they don't answer anything and then you're just left with nothing. Like, I just feel like I read this whole book and I just don't understand anything. I just want to understand zombies. I want to know what makes them tick. I want to understand how this world works, and I haven't gotten any of that. Especially after finishing the book, I just feel like I'm left with even more fucking questions. And hopefully the second book will answer those. But I mean, am I racing to read the second book? No. Will it happen one day? I mean, I'm sure I will, but like, no promises. Now, I'm gonna give you a spoiler to the ending, so if you don't want to know how the book ends, please click off. But I want to talk about the ending really quickly because it's definitely one of the most upsetting parts of this book. So full spoilers ahead. At the end of the novel, I mean, literally, basically nothing happened the entire fucking novel. Like at the beginning of the novel, there's a lot of good tension because Tommy is trying out for the football team, and then eventually he ended up quitting the football team because he was getting so much backlash. I mean, that entire storyline was dropped because that would have been really interesting to see how he like dealt with that. Just dropped. The Hunter Institute, we have no idea what's going on there with the Foundation and like how they're doing anything. They're augmenting some of the zombies to be more higher functioning. You know what I mean? Like they're basically trying to take these lower functioning zombies who take 2 minutes to reply and they're augmenting them. We don't know what that means. Again, would have loved some fucking explanation, but apparently they're augmenting them. Don't know what that is. Also, Karen, who's one of the zombies, starts like eating and drinking, and we find out that apparently some of the zombies have like functioning organs. Like there's a report of a girl who had like a functioning pancreas, so like why not a stomach or why not an esophagus? Like we don't really know. I think that's something that could have been explored a little bit in this book as well, because I feel like again there's like almost 400 pages of nothing. Karen herself is kind of like trying to figure out what's going on, and it's pretty much the rest of the novel until Pete takes out one of the zombies named Evan, and he like brutally murders him in his head. And if you damage a zombie's brain, they can't come back because it's something within the brain that causes the bodies to come back. At the end, there's a big blow, there's a big fight because Pete is coming after Tommy, and Adam sees and interferes, and then Adam gets shot and he dies. And guess what? Then he comes back. So I just feel like what a bombshell that now Phoebe's old best friend Adam, who's had a crush on her forever, is now also a zombie, and now he's gonna feel some weird competition or something between Tommy, I'm sure. But it was interesting that he came back and said that he felt really numb, so that could kind of allude to the fact that zombies don't really feel anything. But again, I just would like a little more information about that. They said that they can feel pain and stuff, but like when does that threshold happen? You know what I mean? Like I just feel like there's so many things that are dropped in here that are just like never actually fully actualized, and that's frustrating. Anyway, thank you for going on this adventure with me back into my childhood. I definitely have a couple more of these planned for like different kinds of books. I have some like romance books and stuff from my past that I really like to read because I just have those memories of certain books, and again, they are obviously incorrect memories. You know what I mean? Like I remember liking them a lot more, and I guess I probably did at the time, but Marked got 2 stars out of me and Generation Dead got a full 3 stars. I just feel like these books could have done a lot better, and I feel like the young adult at the time just maybe was not putting out the best books they possibly could, because I feel like nowadays the young adult fantasy and shit is just slapping. If you have any from your youth that you'd like me to read, please drop them down below. I'm very curious to see what other people read, because honestly you could remind me of something I did read but I kind of forgot about, so I would appreciate that. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a lovely day.